environment. And the same thing, I mean, with everything, whatever, the laws are going to be, they're going to be. And we're going to have to adapt to them until they go away or they don't go away, whatever. But that's all safety. I mean, it's constantly changing. And, because we're constantly identifying new risks, or at least we should be, right? Constantly identifying new risks. And then if enough people are identifying it, they're communicating it to their professional organizations, and it works its way up the chain until somebody says, hey, that either falls under, OSHA's general duty clause, or we need to create something specific for this and regulate it.
Our mission, and we choose to accept it, is zero injuries and zero environmental impact. A healthy workforce and environment is key to our nation's continued success. The Mission Zero podcast is a deep dive with the industry's top experts into the health, safety, and environmental aspects of today's workplace. Our mission is to be a platform for new ideas and strategies that, when implemented, will improve our safety, our environment, and how we govern our business. We are making the world safer, and we're going to have fun doing it.
Welcome, everyone. This is the season 2 of the Mission Zero podcast. Thank you for coming back. My name is Jeff Peoples. I'm your host. Across from me, Justin Overstreet, my wonderful, handsome, debonair I almost said sidekick there. Terrible. I'd be his sidekick. Co-host. Thank you from Wildcat Oil Tools. Thank you for being here, Justin.
Thanks for having me back.
And our guest, I'm very excited about, Laura Weiss from Premium Oilfield Technologies. Laura is the VP, and I'm going to read it all out. I'm not going to give the short and new name. I'm going to give it all out. The VP of Quality, Health, and Safety, Environmental, Social, and Governance. Premium Oilfield.
And that is a mouthful.
5x7 business.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I've admired you from afar on seeing you on LinkedIn. We connected on LinkedIn about a year or so ago, and I mentioned a while back I wanted you to be on the show, and I had scheduled out season 1 already. But I really I liked how active you were in addressing safety issues and talking about safety and trying to, as a group and as an industry, help move it forward. So I want to start out a little bit, though, about getting to know you personally. Can you tell us a little bit about you personally, and also a little bit about your career that led you to where you are now?
Sure. I grew up in the Houston area, born in Connecticut, but got here as fast as I could, they say, courtesy of my dad in the military. Been here since I was 6. Grew up in Deer Park. Always been around, oil and gas, petrochem, all of the refineries and stuff. My dad's a plant operator for Exxon. My grandfather retired from Exxon, management, instrumentation, and electrics. And I mean, he's sort of the reason I got into oil field, and oil and gas. I guess you'd say I was always meant to end up here, but it's not at all what I thought my career was going to do. Sort of accidentally fell into the quality and health and safety and environment stuff for oil and gas. Always thought I was going to be a district attorney. Thought I was going to go. Went to school, pre-law. Thought I was going to be an attorney. I was going to put bad guys away.
Was there something? Did something happen? Was there something in the news that just triggered that, or was it just kind of a thing?
No, I grew up with a healthy obsession with law and order and all the crime dramas you can see on TV.
Well, I want to be an archeologist because I love Indiana Jones. I mean, it affects you when you're young, right? I mean, that's how you get to what you want to do.
Yeah, for a brief stint, before I turned 10, I wanted to be a zoologist and work with monkeys, but thankfully I outgrew that since I have trouble managing my dogs. And having kids kind of pushed that away for me a little bit. On a personal level, I'm a mom. I was a single mom for a little while, and that's actually when I got into all of the QHSE stuff. I got married young and did not end up pursuing a law career, and so I was working in accounting for an industrial manufacturing facility making industrial fasteners. And things just sort of opened up. Had a boss that believed in me and gave me an opportunity to learn quality, and then HSE, and so I kind of, that's how I got into it. And when an opportunity came along at Premium Oilfield Technologies to take on the QHSE stuff there, I jumped at it. I've always said, if an opportunity presents itself, take it.
Yeah.
If somebody offers you something, apply, do the interview, take the chance. If it works out, it was for you. If it doesn't, all you did is learn something else. You got another interview under your belt, you learned a few more skills. And then when I got to Premium, I realized, it was a really good fit for me. Really good fit. The quality background that I had in, continuous improvement, looking at data and looking at the root cause of problems and failures and non-conformances fits really well with HSE.
Yeah.
And it's what allows me to be proactive on the safety side, and hey, to address, problems that have always been, or new problems, well, how do we not just, avoid them, but how do we prevent them from the beginning? You have risk mitigation and risk elimination. How do we eliminate it so that we don't have to get to, a lessons learned situation?
Yeah. So you dealt with COVID and got married.
All in the same year.
And what's your husband's name?
His name is Brandon.
Shout out to Brandon. Congratulations. And you have 2 children.
I do. I have my son, who will be 17 here in a few months.
Okay.
And I have a 7-year-old stepson.
I got to ask the 17-year-old, what has he got a plan yet? Or is he a
He's a junior this year. His birthday is at the end of the school year.
Does he know, is he going to college, military? What's he doing?
Right now, all he's doing is rocking the tiniest man bun you've ever seen on the top of his head.
So we need to get into the military, is what you're saying.
and worried about girls. We finally hit that. I have a little girlfriend. I'm worried about girls stage. I'm terrified. I don't want to hear about it. Just don't talk to anybody but your father.
Yeah. And your stepson is 7.
My stepson is 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of start all over again with a 10-year gap there.
Yes. And they're making me pay for it on a daily basis.
All the joy. Okay, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to, ask about them because, I think I mentioned before we got on recording that, I want to learn about the person here too, and not just the position and the job. So
absolutely.
And now you're at Premium Oilfield Technologies. It's a great company. I've known about it for quite a while. My prior company I worked for was actually was part of the same investment group. Mm-hmm. So we were in the same bundle there. So we were closely connected from my old company to when they were owned by them years ago, maybe 6 years ago now. So I got to work with some of the guys there then. Oh, yeah. Because, it was just some good synergy there. It was the reputation impeccable. Oh, yeah. So you're now in safety and everything else that even approaches it in the oil field.
All the letters.
Yeah. So you're doing the job of all. You moved from quality. I think you had made a point about it. Quality into safety is kind of a seamless transition, right? Mm-hmm.
Quality will always have my heart.
Yeah.
The quality management stuff and actually auditing is fun for me. I enjoy it.
You are a special breed.
It's a game to me. I can win or I can lose based on, if I get a non-conformance or a finding or I don't. So I enjoy it. That's the part of the job I really enjoy. And so quality will always be the part that I just, it sounds ridiculous to say it out loud, but I love that part of my job.
Yeah.
I know there's that old adage, if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
I like what I do. I like my job. I like the company I work for. I like the opportunities that it's given me to learn more, to kind of do my own thing. If I see something that's a problem, say, hey, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What can we do differently? And the opportunities to travel and meet new people. And that, my mother reminds me that really, really, that was my dream job. In high school and in college, I did speech and debate. I was traveling all over the country.
I can totally see you being able to do speech and debate. I could see that.
That's what my background was. So I was traveling all over the country competing. And so it's funny that's, my career has taken me, this career that I just sort of fell into, it's given me what really kind of, set my soul on fire when I was a teenager, was getting to travel and meet new people and learn new things. And that's where I'm at now with Premium, is getting to, to do something different every day. I would be bored to tears in a job that was the same thing every day. And accounting was not a good fit for me.
I had that at the partner company, which is Ringer's Gloves. So I worked for them for years, and I did international sales for them. I tell people how much fun I had doing my job. It was incredibly fun. Like, you get to go to these countries and see, and I laughed. I heard you mention, or you mentioned earlier about the trade laws and the anti-corruption stuff, and your former CFO John Mullins and I had to fill out a few of those as he was my primary. He dealt with me primarily because I was the only one international really for the company. So he was dealing with all the. Where are you going again?
All the paperwork for you.
and then he gets he gets into a full on panic one year where I was in Brazil, and Brazil impeached their president while I was there. And he's sending me emails and calling me. He goes, I got an alert for our lawyers alerted me that you're there because everybody knows when I'm traveling, right?
Yeah.
You're there and there's a political crisis. And I looked around and went, where is there a political crisis? And the next day there was a political crisis.
Oh, yes.
So that was an interesting thing. But yeah, what you said, I loved every single day of it. It was great. So
yeah, I enjoy it. So
you can't beat that for anything, can you? You wake up with a smile on your face.
I don't get up and go, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go. And I like that, one, for myself, but two, I like that for our teams.
Yeah.
If they don't begrudgingly come to work, they are much more productive.
I get to do this with Justin.
And
how much fun that is. Look at it. It's just every day.
And they're more willing to participate, and it's not just it's a family. I know every company says we're a family, but it really is a family there. And I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity.
So you mentioned when we were talking, prior to starting this, that you also have recently begun the ESG extravaganza that it is.
Yes. Huge part.
Tell me what you guys are doing with that, and is it something that was pushed by the private equity company that you are engaged with, or is it something that you did proactively as hey, this is definitely coming to a theater near you, we better get on this?
So both. The environmental side and the governance side are things that we've been discussing for a while. We don't do any direct manufacturing, but we do come in contact a lot with the environmental concerns on customer sites, especially out in Appalachia, in that area, in all the national forests and stuff that there are rigs set up in and work sites set up in. You run into a lot of environmental controls, a lot of spill reporting that needs to be done, and it's expected to be done by everybody. And out there, you get a lot of complaints from, the neighborhoods that you're working in. People, your truck drove on my yard and tore up the ground. Those sort of environmental concerns, as well as your, more federally regulated environmental concerns. So it's something that we started talking about before, even though we're not, our biggest environmental issue is our fleet operations. Sure. With 17 locations internationally, we have a large fleet. We operate over 100 different vehicles just for delivering product to customers. That's not including any motor freight that we may use or anything like that. So we started kind of talking about that stuff early on. And then the governance stuff, because we do work internationally, you run in, to some of the anti-corruption law stuff that you kind of want to stay ahead of, even though we don't think it's a huge risk for us. Starting to do business more, looking at the offshore stuff again and getting, new customers in different countries. You want to stay ahead of, what you're allowed to do, ITAR and all of that. But the social side was sort of pushed through the private equity firm. A lot of focus from them on DE&I, all the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff. that gives investors that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that they're looking for on top of your safety metrics. That got pushed, through the private equity firm. And we've made huge strides in that. We've always, made an effort to look at what different backgrounds, culturally, ethnically, in terms of gender diversity or orientation, we've always looked at how does that, contribute to that sort of continual improvement. What have, different people's experiences given them that will allow us to not only be attractive to, more investors and customers, but how do those backgrounds shape how they see the industry and how it can move forward? So that came, kind of a push from them, but it was something that organically the company's always done.
Sure.
A lot of the guys that kind of started Premium and, they all came from these very highly structured corporate backgrounds that almost sort of cage a lot of the natural human ingenuity that comes with not just the product development, but the interpersonal relationships you can build with customers. If you don't have so many rules necessarily, you have basic rules you have to have. You have to operate safely. You have to operate ethically and morally sound. But you want room to stretch your legs. You want room to say, "Hey, I don't think that's the best way to do that. We can do that this way." And not feel like you're going to be punished for it, or that's not our corporate thought process. You want to feel like you're free and open to sort of, voice those
job.
things. Yeah, to do your job. You want the trust in the employer
You've said that many times.
that says, I hired you to do a job, go do it. And if you feel like we need to do something different, speak up. And you're safe to do that. I have always felt like if your employees, your team really is what they are, feels like you trust them to do the job, they will do the job. They will work for you. They will produce for you.
As Justin and I have said, if you treat people like adults, they'll act like adults. If you treat them like children, they will act like children.
Yes.
Yeah, and you tend to get more creative and innovative solutions to problems, and people feel like they can act freely.
In all of the sections of a business, right? In the sales, in health and safety and environment, in your social and governance stuff, and in the product itself. Yeah.
Have you had any of your people you're contracted with, companies you're contracted with, have they approached you or contacted you about some of the more social side of the ESG, or have they started questioning you? You haven't reached that stage in Oilfield yet.
We have not. No.
Yeah.
I do know that it's something everybody's looking at, because you'll kind of see, bulletins posted about it, or, hey, we're hiring, and all of a sudden we're looking for something different than we looked for before. But
going into like
not directly us.
Yeah, well, going into like ISM World PEC, they're starting to have sections in there dedicated to in ESG specific.
Yeah.
Tell me what your environmental makeup is. Tell me what your social makeup is. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2 or 3 in the last year. Getting ready for 2022, all the updated stuff. There have been 2 or 3.
Well, I assumed that was going to, it was going to come from like the Shells and the companies like that. They're going to, the big multinationals.
It's going to trickle down.
Yeah, it'll trickle its way. And, just like anything else, it has its positives, its pros and cons. It's going to, some good things going to come out of it, and some of it's going to be a little silly. And, I guess managing that is the way forward. You got to figure out a way to do it and keep,
you got
the profits up while you're actually being a better steward of, society.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to frame it now, especially for oil field companies that that have corporate offices, that are in the city or in neighborhoods. I mean, where our office is, we're right off the Beltway here in Houston, but right across the street from us is a church with a nursery school, and you've got a neighborhood right that backs almost right up to us. You want to be a good neighbor in the community that you're operating in. A lot of that social side gets to your community involvement and what are you doing. You want to make sure that you're taking care of the neighborhood that you're working in. I mean, you want to be a welcome guest, not a nuisance, and not somebody that they're constantly complaining about. It makes it difficult to operate, but ultimately, right, all the way down at the end of the supply chain, that neighborhood you're working in is the final customer. If they stop having a demand for your product or what your product gets them, everybody's out of business. I mean, we saw that with COVID. You take planes out of the sky and all of a sudden we're all sitting around twiddling our thumbs trying to make work.
Yeah. Well, then I guess that's one thing. I don't want to spend a ton of time on COVID, but I find it interesting to, I guess, take the greatest health crisis, any safety. I've talked ad nauseum to Justin about it, and every guest we've had, it's been a focal point, and it's, I'd like to say it's dying down, but it really isn't, especially on the side of laws and practices of companies. So, I guess I'll start by asking you, what was your, how did you navigate it with your company, and what did you find that worked? What did you find that didn't? What would you find that the greatest the issue, I guess, the greatest problem you had with COVID?
So, look, my goal from the beginning was to keep as many of our guys working for as long as we could, because most of them had children, which meant either they or their partner had to stay home and take care of kids while they were out of school, out of daycare, whatever. So we wanted, number one, to make sure that as many people stayed working for as long as possible. And the only way to do that really was to make sure that our employees and their families had the basic PPE. They had face masks, hand sanitizer. I have gallons of hand sanitizer that smells like old tequila.
You know what it is, right?
Everywhere.
Well, just because all the breweries shut down.
Yes, and started making hand sanitizer.
I mean, it's a wonderful, side job they had.
Oh yeah. But we made sure that instead of just telling our employees and their families, go find it on your own, that we were supplying that, and not just to our local facility that I was in, but all of our facilities, nationwide. We operate in all of the major areas where there's any sort of oil and gas operations happening. And, we were constantly shipping stuff to them. And now, we kind of made it through that. Every once in a while, I get a notice from a customer, hey, you had a person on our rig at this time, somebody tested positive. They can't come back until they test positive or until this date.
Yeah.
I get the guys out there or, the girls or whoever, I get them tested. I want them working, not sitting at home and number one, let sales go to somebody else. But number two, it's hard on, mental health to have to sit home for 2 weeks and try to find something to do. Look, I don't want to be at home for 2 weeks with my husband and my children with nothing to do. Love them to death, but I need a task. I need a job to do. I need something to keep me busy. And so I want my people working. I want my teams working for as long as they can. Now it's just, do what you're going to do in terms of the vaccination. We're not mandating them. We are encouraging our employees to get vaccinated for their own health. But we're not mandating anything. And as long as the OSHA stuff is on hold, we're sort of navigating that day by day, getting a plan in place just in case, but making sure our employees understand that, we're not forcing them to do anything. And making sure that we're paying for those COVID tests if they can't find them free in their local vicinity.
Have you gotten the hint that maybe some of the rig sites you're going on, some of those companies are going to require you guys to have vaccinations?
Right now, nobody's asked for vaccine cards or anything like that. As it is right now, it's if you're sick, don't come here.
Yeah.
Masks if you're indoors, still on a lot of them. The same thing we've been doing for the last, year and a half now. Not a lot of change for us in terms of what we've been doing that way.
Are you guys still doing your testing like at a lab, or are you doing home testing yet?
Both. If it's like last week when I had a customer that said, hey, this gal was on our site. Somebody tested positive. She needs to get tested, or she needs to wait this long to come back. We sent her to a lab. Did that. But when we've got guys who think they may have been exposed through their kids or their family or whatever, before I send them to a customer site, they're taking an at-home test.
Yeah.
Sort of just to be proactive, right? Hey, if this little at-home test comes back positive, let's get you to a lab and double check. If it's negative, I feel more confident that it's okay for me to let them go out onto a customer site. I want my guys to stay healthy. I want our customers to stay healthy. I want vendors who come on site to stay healthy. Whether you think COVID is a huge risk or not, sort of irrelevant when you're trying to operate a business, right? You got to kind of try to navigate what your employees feel, what your customers feel, what your vendors feel, and then try to keep all of that in line with whatever the state and local and federal regulations are. I mean, that was not a fun dance when you've got 17 international locations and you're going, all right, well, this country's doing this, this one's doing this.
Premiums in 17 different countries.
17 locations internationally. So we have, most of them are here in the U.S., but we have facilities in India, Russia, the Middle East, a couple of different locations in the Middle East. We own a manufacturing facility in India. So trying to keep up with what everybody's got going on, every country's different rules, every state's different rules, that was the difficult part.
When COVID first hit, I was a part of a PISA. I don't know if I think y'all may be involved in that. Premium maybe, but PISA, petroleum. And I was a part of a 5-man group that put together a protocol. We were looking to say, okay, early on, what's the protocol, or what's a good base work or template for an oil company to do? And we had Schlumberger and NOV and a couple more in there. And the problem we kept running into would be the communication between different companies. So when you're on a site and you've got 10 different companies out there at once, or whatever that number may be, how on earth are you how do you know who's out there? How do you know, if you find out one of your employees tests positive, how do you know everybody else that they've been in contact with?
That was the difficult part, I think, for everybody. And that's the difficult part in all HSE, I think, is communicating effectively. But with COVID, if one of our people tested positive or suspected they'd been exposed, I was getting an email. Didn't matter if it was 2 a.m. or 10 o'clock at night or whatever, I was getting an email. Hey, all right, I need a list of, I need your log of every customer you've been to for the last 14 days. And I was sending emails to the safety contacts that I have at all of those customers, pulling MSAs to get contact information. Hey, I had an employee on your site at this time that, may have exposed your employees. Do with that whatever you're going to do based on your own protocol. But that created a lot of work, I think, for myself, but for basically, everybody who works in HSE. COVID just created a lot of extra work for all of us.
Everybody.
Everybody
I talked to, and of course, everyone I would call would be HSE.
Right.
They were all doing the job of 3 people because they were fighting on the other end the budget.
Yes.
There was no budget to hire anybody because you weren't really doing that much work. So you're sitting there, okay, you're forced to do the work of 3 people. So I hope coming out of this, there's a greater appreciation for the safety you professionals out there.
I tell my guys,
to the ground of these.
I tell my guys, look, don't hate on me. It's not coming from me.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't create the pandemic. We just got to learn how to work in it. And the same thing. With everything, whatever the laws are going to be, they're going to be. And we're going to have to adapt to them until they go away or they don't go away, whatever. But that's all safe. It's constantly changing. And, because we're constantly identifying new risks, or at least we should be, right? Constantly identifying new risks. And then if enough people are identifying it, they're communicating it to their professional organizations, and it works its way up the chain until somebody says, hey, that either falls under OSHA's general duty clause, or we need to create something specific for this and regulate it.
You said earlier, you mentioned what I would call process safety. You talked about getting hammers out of hands or swinging hammers less and things like that. Is that something you focus on? Is it process safety? Is it, because I notice a lot of sophisticated companies, they're doing that. It's like not just how to, I make products that are the last line of defense.
Right.
But we're trying to prevent the risk itself, right? You're trying to prevent the risk itself,
correct?
Right? Is that like a major goal of yours, or is that something you constantly work on, or is that?
We have a really incredible engineering team that assumes people are, they behave riskier than they actually do. They assume.
You can say stupid.
Okay, Okay, well, they do. They assume people are
worst case
are dumber than they really are.
Yeah,
That's where they go. They always go, worst case scenario, this happens. How do we prevent that from happening in the first place? And but that's been the direction of the company sort of from the beginning. Has always been, how do we do things that have always been done in the safest way possible? Is there a better way to do that, a safer way to do that? And the feedback that we get from a lot of the customers is that those products that we've designed that way, we don't have 3 guys running that product. We don't have 3 guys watching that valve. We got 1 now. So there's cost saving tied directly to that for the customer. Yeah, the product itself may be an initial investment of a little bit more than what you would normally spend, but you're taking extra guys off of that task, putting them to something else. So it doesn't just improve the safety of the product itself, but it improves the safety of the whole process and the efficiency of the whole process, which I think is necessary when you're approaching the safety side with a customer. Is like, look, hey, it's a safer product. Honestly, the guy on the rig does not care.
Does not care.
He's not looking at the dollars tied to that safety risk.
No, not at all.
But he is looking. Yeah, he is looking at his head count and how efficient, that head count can be put to work.
Yeah.
And
it can't work when they're all lost time.
Right. I mean, nobody's doing anything.
Nobody's doing anything with lost time.
And so when you frame it that way, which is something that Premium's done a really good job of doing, in designing their whole business practice, is connect those dots financially for the customer.
So Premium designs their own products that they put in the field for the most part.
Half and half. I mean, we design our own product that's going in the field. We do have, a handful of patents on our own product. And then, of course, we sell, resell, things that are patented already that a customer just has to have and maybe can't get, they'll come to us for. But part of the reason that they've, acquired so many companies, Supreme Manufacturing manufactures our Patriot brand of pistons and pulsation dampeners and valves and all of that. And we have PMR out in India that does the bulk of our manufacturing. And some of their own design work as well. Our shaker screens, we do some of our own design on that. Premium puts a lot of work into R&D, a lot. And a chunk of that is on the safety of the product. Our MPD stuff in particular has put a huge emphasis on both environment and safety.
Can you talk about what that is? MPD?
The managed pressure drilling stuff.
Okay.
I'm probably not the best person to talk about that.
It's okay.
I don't understand all of the science behind it. But it, some of the, pressure regulation and stuff that you want to be able to do from a touch screen inside of an explosion-proof box, as opposed to out there with your hand on the valve, trying to open and close a valve where you're putting yourself at direct risk and exposure to, a pressured up piece of equipment that can kill multiple people if it's not handled properly.
So again, removing
the initial exposure risk is sort of the guiding principle behind a lot of the products that we are designing. Our guys come with a background from all over the world. They've worked a lot of offshore. They've worked out in Africa. They've worked in the North Sea. They've worked in the Gulf. When it comes to the managed pressure stuff,
is the breakdown of who the customer is it mostly onshore or off?
Mostly onshore for us right now.
Okay.
But we always looking to take that safer product offshore. In a different application. How can we help keep everybody alive?
Do you service any industries outside of oil and gas? It's just all oil and gas right now. Okay.
Some wastewater, but
okay.
not enough that it's a huge percentage of our business.
So I'd like to touch on something we were discussing prior. You talked about the sort of business model of the company is growth by acquisition, and then a lot of times that acquisition, the integration of that falls on quality for sure, and then
absolutely
safety as well, and you're both of those things. So discuss some of the challenges that you've seen with the acquisition growth model, and then some ways that you've overcome those challenges.
Right. So, when your business guys start looking at acquiring a company, they're looking at the dollars. They're looking at the numbers. They're looking at, the commodity that they're going to get and deciding if it's going to be an asset purchase or whatever. But they're very rarely ever looking at the, quality related procedures.
Does
or
it fit?
This. Yeah. They're not looking at the safety plan. They're not looking at an HSE manual. They're not looking at TRIR or any of your DART or LTIR metrics. They're not looking at any of that. They're just, we can make more money with this product. We can improve on this product, number crunchers, making decisions. And so a lot of times what you get then is a company whose culture when it comes to HSE and even quality is not the same as the parent company. If they have an HSE program, when you acquire smaller companies that have a great product, right, that they just don't have the financial backing to make, the moves maybe that they want to, or to get into those larger markets, but you do. Yeah, as terms of a business decision, it's a great business decision. But then you've got those sort of, smaller companies that you're acquiring that they got, one or two guys doing the work of 8, so they're always tired, but that's just how it's always been done. They're fixing stuff that maybe isn't theirs to fix, but that's just how it's always been done.
And that's your greatest enemy, you said earlier.
Yeah,
how it's always been done.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what we've found in acquiring, customers. Or you get total opposite end of the spectrum, where they have, through previous experience, their employees at different locations or whatever, they've been through some of those big OSHA investigations. And so they've learned through experience, and they've got, redundant controls in place. Too much of a good thing sometimes is difficult to integrate as well. Because then you're doing things, sometimes you're just doing them for the sake of doing them. And nobody understands why they're doing it. And so then you get people who just rush through the task, right? They rush through that JSA. They don't really pay much attention to what's on it. They just sign it. They sign it without reading it because, all my paperwork's in the folder. So you kind of have to balance those two extremes in that growth through acquisition, right? And then try to figure out how you make both of them fit in what you currently have without making it feel like they're completely discarded. They're not heard. I don't care what you've always done. We're going to do it this way. You never want to trample on your team, right? Mm. Whether they're new to the company or they've always been there, you never want to make them feel like the redheaded stepchild of the group, right? You kind of want them to feel like they have ownership in the new process. So what we've done here recently, Premium has this great, huge new West Texas facility out in Midland, where we had 3 separate companies through acquisition that we gained that we've moved all into one facility, currently finishing up that move into one big facility. But then you get, who's in charge? What are we going to do? Who's going to make these decisions? There's one of me, and I'm in Houston. And I love Midland, but I don't want to live there full time.
You don't have a field rep?
We do now.
Okay, good for you. My goodness.
Yes, we have one now, and she's great. Real go-getter, real highly organized, but she doesn't take mess from anybody. I'm not doing that. You're what? You're not going to what? Yes, ma'am, I'll go. Yeah, that's what I thought. And so what we've done is we've established a safety committee out there with an individual from each of the industries that we've recently acquired that we put into one building to speak, for their teams, so that they all feel like they have equal say, they have ownership of the task. Because what I've found, doesn't matter if it's quality or safety or production or janitorial or whatever, if your employees feel like they have control over their job, if they feel like they have ownership in not just their own work, but the company and the product and watching out for the person next to them, they tend to perform better. You let them design the job the way they want. And if the end result is what you want it to be and they've done it safely, who cares if it's the way you've always done it? You give them that freedom. And so that's one of the things that we're doing now is when we do merge multiple companies into one facility, or multiple divisions rather into one facility, is that we're allowing them more of a voice in what they're doing. Instead of the corporate office going, you're going to do it this way. Okay, but you're in Houston and we're in West Texas and things are way different. Or we're in North Dakota and things are just different here. You've got, 90 employees in one facility. I got 2 dudes up here, trying to make stuff happen. It's not always going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, Justin's, he mentioned his mantra is, you're hired because you know best how to do your work, right? And so you got to let them do the work.
Yeah.
We're all adults getting hired to do adult things.
Yeah.
So
right.
that.
Right. Look, I love the teams that we have. They're great guys. I don't need to babysit them.
Yeah.
And if I've hired somebody and I feel like I need to babysit them and hold their hand, I hired the wrong person.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I want them to have a voice, to say, hey, this is what we've always done here. It's not working anymore, or I think we could do it better, and give them a forum and a platform to do that. That is a discussion, as opposed to me just going out there, twice a month and going, you're going to do this, whether you like it or not. Number one, I don't manage like that. And number two,
whether you understand it.
Right. Nobody's going to respond to that. They need to know why they're doing it that way. And I mean, everybody needs a voice. Everybody needs to feel heard. Everybody needs to feel like they can contribute, and it's not going to be, well, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I outrank you, whatever. Look, if I don't understand why I'm doing something, I'm probably not going to do it correctly in the first place. And if I'm being told to do something and that's the only reason I'm doing it, I'm probably not going to have a good attitude doing it. I'm going to rush through it, not going to do it safely. And that's how you get into problems. I mean, look, everybody's got feelings. Everybody's got, stuff they come to business with. And it's difficult to tell people, just because somebody told you to do it, you have to do it.
That's tough. I always like to ask this question towards the end. I was always wanting to leave this, each episode with some wise words or some good thoughts from people. And, 2 questions, I'd like you to address or ask or answer would be, number one, what do you, in your particular field, which you mentioned, it's all oil field, right? You're in the energy patch. What do you see as the greatest problem or task that you're going to have to overcome in the near future for the for the energy business?
In the near future, it's going to be that productivity at all costs mindset.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get Oilfield back to where it used to be. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is production. Get more rigs up, get more people back to work. But it has to be done safely. It is not a flip or a switch you can just flip on and off and do it safely.
Yeah.
You have to have, those safety procedures, those processes in place. That mindset is probably going to be the most difficult, especially in the near future.
Yeah.
As people rush to get back to work.
And what do you think more longer term? 5 years.
I mean,
you can't say the same thing.
No, I think honestly, once things are back to normal, and everybody's back to work, then you run into
complacency.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the complacency stuff, but that's not even it. There will be the risk that guys that are working out on the rig, ladies that are working out on the rig, everybody who's working out there, has not been properly trained in the safest way to do it. You're going to end up with a lot of very young people starting out their career, and if their foundation is not right, if they don't have the safest foundation to start from, they're going to develop poor habits. And that really is where that's how it's always been done thing comes from. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
The next generation can do it differently.
Well, what I noticed about you, and the reason I wanted you on was I noticed you didn't have to come in here and talk about and tell us how proactive you are. You could see it, and so you're an actual an intellectual thinker inside the business, and you're a forward thinker, and I really like that. I like your activity, your problem solving. mindset of safety, and I really appreciate that. And look, thank you so much for being our first guest on season 2. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate the fact that you had the decency to wear maroon also. Thank you very much.
Well, Laura, thank you. Laura, Vice President of Quality Health, Safety, Environmental, Social, and Governance for Premium Oilfield Technology.
Oh, you have no look. We changed it to Vice President of Quality and Regulatory Affairs.
Okay.
Because all the rest of that sounded real obnoxious.
Regulatory affairs is a huge bucket.
It is, but it was the closest thing we could get to fit all of that stuff into one thing. So,
well, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it too.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show and accept the mission. Please subscribe to the Mission Zero podcast on your preferred streaming service and be sure to give us a 5-star review.